But I'll say broadly about 50% of people's net worth is in real estate. About 15% will be in gold. Now gold's run up, maybe it's gone up more. About 15% would be in FDs. 10% or so will be in retirement accounts. What is left over? Money moving into SIP, 30,000 crores or whatever per month is at the highest level ever, and more money is moving into it.
That now India has 1 million millionaires in USD already, and that is rising rapidly. So talk to us a little bit about the investing part of this.
SIP is the easiest instrument, so it has also become the proxy for mutual fund investments. A lot of time people will start a SIP, then stop it, and then start it again. India is growing at 7-8%. The rest of the world will go at 1.5 to 2%. People are doing many other things, and they are all actually making money. They're investing in ETFs, they're investing in mutual funds. If you asked Warren Buffett, what should I do with my money? What would he respond?
S&P 500.
Exactly. Right? He would say S&P 500, not Berkshire Hathaway. He'd say S&P 500.
Not Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah.
I talk to Gen Zs also who are getting into jobs just now and all of that. They say, look, I'll start earning, I'll have 50,000 rupees disposable income as like an engineer at Google. What should I do? Is the goal-based investing just never works. I think people don't just invest and say, look, I'll invest in it and I'll get a motorcycle. People will buy a 20,000 rupee shoe, but they want 50% discount on it. The three things I look for in people, if I can judge them, hard to judge. Number one is ability to learn. Number two is ability to unlearn, because they're related. And number three is ownership. If you have these three building blocks, I don't care what you know, you don't know. I feel like everybody has time in their lives. Everybody feels busy, but I personally feel everybody has time in their lives. It's really about nervous energy. I realized that I would regret not coming back to India for a couple of reasons. One, Myntra seemed very interesting. Second is, this is something that my macroeconomics professor in Berkeley had told me. He said, when you see influx of large capital and cheap labor, show up.
Good morning and welcome to the Prime Venture Partners podcast. I am delighted to have with me today a dear friend and the CEO of Angel One, Ambarish, as AK as our friends or his friends call him. So AK, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on this.
AK, we go back a long way, from Google, you worked at several other companies, at Myntra, and now, of course, you're heading one of the largest sort of brokerages in India, online brokerages. Can you take our listeners through a little bit of your journey and how this came into being?
So I'll go back maybe all the way back. I was born in a very small town called Aligarh near New Delhi, and then went to AMU for a bachelor's, went to IIT Kanpur for a master's. Then I was here about 30 years back in Bangalore working for SAS, Silicon Automation Systems, now called Sasken. It's a public company now. And then I went to Purdue University from India to Indiana for a PhD and landed in the Valley in Jan of 2000. Now, Jan of 2000, very interesting, and we can go back to it, but landed in Valley to work for Cisco Systems. Cisco was like the NVIDIA of that time. If you think of internet boom now, the AI boom, so became the most valued company in $550 billion in market cap in March of 2000. And stayed there for 5 years. Then I went to Berkeley for an MBA, third full-time master's, very slow learner. Went to Bain & Company for consulting because I didn't know what else to do. I was running away from technology. And then I realized I really love technology and I really like building products. So came back to building products at Google, started working on first incarnation of Google TV, then worked on Chromecast, where kind of started the first PID, still own the patent for industrial design on it. So quite fun. And 2015, I came back to India, became the chief product officer for Myntra. That was quite fun, 3 years there. Google called me back to run Google Pay. So for 7 years, I was working on Google Pay in APAC. And about a year back, almost exactly, I joined Angel One. That's been the story.
Yeah, no, very impressive and lots of things to unravel there. What brought you back to India? And then speaking more from a market landscape, consumer behavior, etc. point of view, what was happening in 2015, and what do you think is happening now? Just overall, right?
Yeah. So two big things led to me coming back to India. One is Mukesh Bansal, who's the founder of Myntra. He was visiting Palo Alto, I think probably March of 2015. Somebody introduced me. I remember he's into fitness. I bought him a kale salad. We sat down and started talking. And I found him very interesting. He can sometimes be very distracted. He's like, but very sharp, very interesting. And I said, I need to learn more about India. I need to learn more about him, about his company. And as I learned more, I had not paid enough attention to India, Indian staying in the US for the last 18 years then. I realized that I would regret not coming back to India for a couple of reasons. One, Myntra seemed very, very interesting. Second is, this is something that my macroeconomics professor in Berkeley had told me. He said, when you see influx of large capital and cheap labor show up, cheap labor in economic sense, and we saw that arbitrage is still there in India. And so that inflection point was happening in India. Aadhaar had happened. So Jam was happening. Jio was just about to happen. So I think it was a very, very interesting time, and I get lucky over and over again with my choices. And I thought it was a phenomenal time to come back. The last 10 years have been a dream story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I came back to India in 2007, and at that time we felt like what you felt in 2015. So it took a little longer, but
7 was when I think Flipkart was started. Maybe even
absolutely.
Myntra was started around the
Yeah,
same
I
time.
remember meeting Sachin and Vinny in a very, very small office,
Yeah.
telling them about Google and Google search and Google ads and whatnot as a part of Erasmic, which was earlier Axel.
Right,
Which is Axel now, sorry. Right. No, so a lot has happened since.
You were at Erasmic?
No, our friends Subrata and others recruited me to help their portfolio companies.
Got it.
So I was just helping them while I was at Google. More general gyan or
That's
whatever.
cool. I never knew. So
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
on
yeah.
new
No,
things.
no. I mean, Chuckbuck, which then became Bluestone. All these companies I met way back in the day because I was one of the early product people in India in
That's true.
2007. There were
That
very
is
few
true.
product people. They're like, oh, you're supposed to be a product person. Can you tell these guys what
Actually,
product
it's
is?
funny because even in 2015 when I came, product management, and I call it art, not a job or anything. The product management as an art didn't exist as much in India. In fact, UX design was a bit there, but then UX research, UXR, was almost unheard of. So 2007, I can imagine there were not
Absolutely.
as many product managers for
Yeah, I'd
sure.
done a LinkedIn search for number of product managers in India. First, people didn't know what product manager was.
Yeah.
People knew program managers, people knew
That's
project
right.
managers.
Yeah.
I think it was less than 100,
Wow.
100, right? And of course, we've come a long way. And the fact that you were in leadership positions, Myntra and so forth, right? Google itself hired quite a few leaders in product and so forth. So how about the consumer behavior to the degree that what you observed, say in Myntra, I know very different businesses, right? Myntra is very different. Google Pay, the scale was sort of unfathomable. Angel One, I'm sure you will take it to that scale. But still, how was the consumer behavior change that you have observed? Any thoughts on that?
So that's a very, very large
Broad.
topic. Of course, very,
Yes.
very broad. This is like you've just
Maybe
thrown
maybe a
like
couple of maybe a
But
couple of
I'll-
things that really strike you, or maybe that have surprised you, saying I didn't think this would happen, but this happened.
So some things that have stayed the same and some things I think are evolving. Some things that have I think remained the same is India is very value oriented. By value oriented, I mean that so Myntra, for example, people will buy a 20,000 rupee shoe, but they want 50% discount on it. If it's at full price, the sell through would be generally very low. So people can spend a lot of money on things that like I've never spent 20,000 rupees on a shoe, but people would spend it all the time, but they want a discount on it and then they can spend. So this is the value orientation. We all grew up like that, right? We had the value orientation. I'll give you a quick example of that. I think product people will recognize this. So we used to have end of reason sale at Myntra, and the idea was it's end of season sale and we called it end of reason sale. The challenge is the first day, the number of orders that came, you could scale your servers, everything else, but you can't scale your warehouse and logistics to like 5-10 times.
Correct.
And that became a problem. So we said, we need to actually delay the orders, but delay so that the customer accepts the delay. So we put a checkbox there saying 25 rupees if you can take this order delayed by 5 days.
Oh my God.
Everybody was clicking it. People were making 50,000 rupees of order and clicking that 25 rupees because they said, look, I'll get this 25 rupees back. After 2 hours, we shut the feature down. We said, look, at this point, we're just leaking money for no reason. So that's value orientation and that hasn't changed. The thing that I'm starting to see now in Gen Z that is changing is that I think they are becoming more experience oriented. They've got this wider experience. The other day, there's an engineer at Google who'd come to see me, and he came from Hyderabad to a Karan Ojla, one of these guys' concert, and I was surprised that he traveled. I think back in the day, even 10 years back, you would not see that. So people are going after experiences. They are much more open to the world, what is happening outside the world. I think the teenagers are also becoming much more health conscious. I have a teenager, I think he'll go to the gym. Today he's been sort of building on it. The people are realizing maybe COVID did that a bit. People are becoming more health conscious. Health devices like you're wearing this device, right? You talked about. So you're starting to see that. I think people are also, this is a trend. I don't know if it's a consumer trend, but with AI coming in, I think people are right now disillusioned in terms of like, where is this going? And I hear a lot of people worrying about it, both in terms of using an AI product, but also thinking, where is life going? Where are jobs going and stuff like that. It was a very broad question, so I gave you a
No,
few
no,
tidbits there.
no. It's very, very interesting things. I agree with you on both counts, right? The value consciousness is extremely, extremely high, and I have some examples as well. But let me switch gear to kind of what you're doing now, but also a little bit of the Google Pay journey. So Google Pay is a lot, I would argue, and UPI in general, and my two other partners, Sanjay and Shripati, they worked on Aadhaar as pro bono volunteers
Oh,
for 2 years
wow.
in the founding team of Aadhaar, 15 people that
Through
Nandan had picked.
iSpirit or?
No, no, Nandan had picked a team of 15 people in the
Wow.
private. That's how Prime Ventures got started,
Oh,
honestly.
wow.
Because they all met there, and then as Nandan was quasi going into politics, they said, okay, time to move out now because Aadhaar is already launched. So, and they
Oh,
were
wow.
all pro bono. Nandan being the smart man that he is, he didn't pay them anything. It's like, I can't afford to pay you. You're doing good community service, so do that.
It's great to
But
do that, yeah.
but let's talk a little bit about financial inclusion. Then we'll go on the wealth spectrum
Yeah.
latter. What were some of the interesting stories that you observed in terms of the Google Pay journey,
Yeah.
particularly in terms of financial inclusion? Still thinking on the consumer,
Yeah.
saying the kind of people that got into the fold, what kind of crazy transactions started happening. Of course, the volumes and all we know and we love,
Right,
and
right,
that's
right.
actually also what we invest behind in Prime.
Yeah.
But maybe just some of the stories there of how that journey evolved.
Yeah, no, I think, look, even in my wildest dreams, and even the internal sort of dreams that we sell, when you have a project, you sort of think high and sell. I think it overshot all of that. So the thing is that this just created momentum that I think hasn't been seen. At least we didn't realize it. We haven't seen it before. In terms of financial inclusion, I heard like a bunch of interesting stories, and I'll give you some random examples. They're not random, but I'm just picking sort of selective examples would be the right term to use there. Uh, I met someone who said, "Look, I used to have, my savings in like a gold bead or something because that's how I would put it there, and otherwise I would have just cash. But now I can actually, now in fact they want the payment in a GPay, and by the way, they would use GPay as a term like Xerox for
Yes,
photocopy, right?
absolutely.
So people were doing GPay with PhonePe,
Yes.
and I have an interesting story on that as well. But so now, in fact, your household help said, I don't want it in cash because my cash, for socio-economic reasons, as I won't go into that detail, could be
Yeah, yeah.
taken away from me,
Not hard
and
to imagine.
somebody's gonna drink off that money. So they used to actually, before this, suddenly go and get a gold bead or a gold ornament, and that can't be snatched. Or they'll save it somewhere where it can't be snatched. Suddenly they wanted this money in their bank account. They said, open a bank account for me, I want it there. There is a chef at Google, in fact, I was talking to him, and he said, look, this Google Pay has changed my life because I used to have to carry cash, and I go through this road in the night, and many times I got looted. Like somebody who's drunk will come to me and take it away. And now, I've got this thing, and sometimes like they'll try to snatch my phone, but they can't do much. It's logged, all of that. So people saw this in different ways. Same way merchants, right? Where merchants had a tremendous amount of volume at a specific time, and suddenly many people are coming, and some people would pay, some people won't pay to them. It was just hard for them to pay also because people are falling over themselves to pay cash. Now you could just scan a QR code and make it happen. So overall, I think people started thinking about their money differently. They sometimes got into the mobile fold saying, hey, initially, for example, WhatsApp, a lot of people got into mobile phones with WhatsApp. Now they said, Arey, another huge use case, I can make payments through this. So across merchants and consumers, you saw lots of stories that changed people's lives very very differently. Like for example, when you had to be in a hospital and you had to make a payment, a lot of time people were like running around and saying, I had to take out a cash from somewhere and do it. Now they were able to do that. There were like tons of these examples where suddenly this, I call it geo shifting money, point A to B suddenly became just instant. That changed life, different. I mean, I'll give you a very random example now. We'll decide whether we want to play it or not. So I was in my office. Somebody came in front of my driver, a scooter came and then it hit the car. Now my driver says, look, he didn't hit the car. The kid said no, but the person there started quarreling, saying, look, I need the money, otherwise my kids are in the car and all that. My driver called me, said, hey, we need to pay him $1,000. Now, if a UPI or a instant transfer wasn't there, tell me what, I mean, this would be just a quarrel that would be going on there.
Yeah.
Now I could make that transfer. So many such instances where things became interesting.
Absolutely. No, I like the term geo shifting of money, right? I think that's very, very interesting. Um, on the other end of the spectrum, right, there is so much, talk about wealth creation. And I think at least our numbers are, and I'm sure you have your numbers, right, as well, that now India has 1 million millionaires in USD already, and that is rising rapidly. And the max amount of wealth creation is going to happen in India in the next 10, 15 years, right?
Absolutely.
So whether it's millionaires or even billionaires,
Yeah.
right? So talk to us a little bit about the investing part of this on the other end of the spectrum, right? Of people that do have wealth or some kind of liquid net worth. What are they doing with it? Especially in your new job over the last year,
Yeah.
what are you seeing in terms of consumer behavior with respect to wealth? What's coming into the markets? I know right now we're at a tumultuous time, but nonetheless.
It's a great time. I'd say, look, you know
Yeah.
what? I think if you're thinking for the long term, it's always a great time in India. And you
Yeah.
know, if somebody had told you when maybe Nifty was at 26,000 or something, and said, hey, if it goes down to 22,500, are you gonna buy? You would be tempted.
Yeah, like the Myntra sale.
Yeah, you would be tempted to buy, because now see, the macro hasn't changed, the India story hasn't changed.
Completely agree.
So this is a oil phenomena right now, really, and I know people are suffering and all that, but I think just when you break it down, it's really oil going up and people saying in the short term that's a problem. Now investing, if you go, just going back to the macro also and saying why I'm saying it's always a great time to invest in India. If you look for the next 25 years, 2047 is when we talk about Viksit Bharat and us being a developed, termed a developed nation. From here to that time, if you look at the growth of world GDP, so let's say 100 units are added to the world GDP. Out of that, at least 30 units will come from India.
I completely agree.
Now imagine this one country contributing those 30 units. And it's very simple math. We could do that math. India is growing at 7-8%. The rest of the world will go at 1.5 to 2%. And when you do the math, that's how it turns
And we're
out.
at a meaningful denominator already.
So yeah, it's a meaningful denominator. We are the, depending on where you look at, fourth, fifth largest economy in the world, getting to third very, very quickly. So overall in investing, it's a great time. And people who have invested in India have benefited a lot. Now, a lot of time people say, no, you have to time it and all of that. Now, let's take it at the peak of the Harshad Mehta time, 1992. What was the value of Sensex?
I have no clue. Less than 1,000?
Well, it was 4,500.
Okay.
But
Close.
where is
Pretty
Sensex
close.
now?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So when you look at it, it's gone like multiple times. So overall, that is there. In terms of investing, I think what you're also seeing is that right now the penetration is very, very low. Right? So where are people's money right now?
So can you talk a little bit about the penetration? Like what is your kind of denominator?
So I'll just tell you
Yeah,
now,
broadly.
depending on who you ask, you'll get a different number. But I'll say broadly about 50% of people's net worth is in real estate.
50.
50 in retail wealth, right? About 15% will be in gold. Now gold's run up, maybe it's gone up more. About 15% would be in FDs. Right? 10% or so will be in retirement accounts. What is left over? And now this is general. I'm saying, look, the
And then
exact
you slice
thing.
it by per capita, it'll be even more
It's
dramatic.
5 to 7 to 8%, not more. Nobody will say more than like 8 to 9%, but it's somewhere between 5 to 8%. So that is the headroom for investing.
And what is it in a developed market, AK?
So in a US, that number would, somebody quoted it like 44, 45%.
I wouldn't be surprised. Right?
So, and if you look at number of households, also many more households in equity. Now, this number is not exact, and it's very hard to get exact number, but broadly, I think this number is right. So the headroom is very, very large in this space. That is why you're seeing a lot of interest in wealth and what people do. What you're seeing is across the spectrum. We are a platform and people invest across the spectrum, right? People will, this is in our quarterly report, but there is a lot that gets talked about FNO, for example. Right? There is a bunch of that conversation around it. What is your guess on the number of transacting users on Angel One that only do FNO?
Very hard to.
But there's so much talk of it. So what's your guess on what it would be?
As a percentage?
As a percentage of our transacting users who only do FNO, do nothing else.
I don't know, maybe like 50%?
5%.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying, right? So everybody else is doing FNO in cash or cash only.
Hmm.
And the story in FNO is that I think unless you're smart, you're hedging, you will likely lose money on it,
Correct.
right? And we are also very honest about it. But people are doing many other things, and they
Hmm.
are all actually making money. They're investing in ETFs, they're investing in mutual funds. We are the second largest providers of new SIP registrations in India. Did you know that?
I did not. And actually, I have a lot of questions about
Right.
SIPs, but please
So
continue.
you've got that, and the SIP registrations are all, SIP money moving into SIP, 30,000 crores or whatever per month is at the highest level ever, and more money is moving into it. In fact, when FIs have been selling,
Yeah.
DIs have been lapping that up, and I think the market is staying up because of that. So you're seeing investing across the board. What you see on our platform again is a very small chunk of what it will be in the future. FNO is a very small percentage. There is cash, mutual funds, ETFs, all of these things getting invested across the board, and there are many instruments, of course.
So let's talk a little bit about SIP. So the number I have or what we track at Prime is about 40,000 crores a month, right? Which is closer
Somewhere
to
there.
$4 billion.
It
But
varies a lot
it
by
varies
month, but
obviously
yeah.
depending on who you talk to. But let's say $3.5, $4 billion. Of course, dollar is of course getting stronger, but nonetheless, 35 to 40,000 crores. Um, I'm particularly intrigued about this new SIPs, right? What is triggering people to start a new SIP for the first time,
Right.
right? So I'm saying in the wallet share side, is it like, oh, I must save for the future, I must save for a child, I must save for a retirement, or it's just like the mutual fund sahi hai campaign and I saw it and Rohit Sharma or whoever Jasprit Bumrah is saying it, therefore I should investigate this.
It's hard to, when you try to break down consumer behavior, you think you know, but it's very hard to. And I have a fun story. These random stories come to. We'll come to that if we have time. But I think my understanding is the goal-based investing just never works. I think people don't just invest and say, "Look, I'll invest in it and I'll get a motorcycle." People have tried this and people have
Yeah,
tried pushing on that front.
there was a startup based right here, half a kilometer from here.
Is it still there?
No, it's not.
So I think goal-based investing generally hasn't worked. What people want out of it is they say, "Look, I've got $1,000, I've got $10,000. What is the best I can get out of it?" Now, what is the best? Now, best is not about, like, some people, best is different definitions. Some people say, "Look, you know what, I don't want to take a lot of risk. Here's what I want to go." Or, "I want to take a lot of risk, I'm willing to lose it." Most people would say, and then even most, I talk to Gen Zs also who are getting into jobs just now and all of that. They say, "Look, I'll start earning, I'll have 50,000 rupees disposable income is like an engineer at Google. What should I do with it?" And generally the advice is, "Look, you go, invest in an index fund, it's very hard to beat over a long term." And then they're like, "Okay, what I want to do with this or that." But most times you will see broader. If you asked Warren Buffett, "What should I do with my money?" What would he
S&P
respond?
500,
Exactly, right? He would say S&P 500, not Berkshire Hathaway. He'd say S&P
not Berkshire
500,
Hathaway. Yeah.
right? So I think the point is that therefore people are seeing that there is a value of diversification. They're willing to invest in India Inc. in the long term. And they're saying, "Look, I'll keep having this and I don't want to worry about it, therefore SIP." Now, SIP is the easiest instrument, so it has also become the proxy for mutual fund investments. A lot of time people will start a SIP, then stop it, and then start it again. But SIP has become like a proxy for mutual fund investment. And people are thinking long-term India Inc. They are thinking, "I don't want to lose money. I want to have long-term capital gain, and then I can figure out what do I do with it."
Got it. Got it. Fair enough. Um Switching gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about some of the interesting opportunities you see in this space, right? Because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, often early stage entrepreneurs. Because, like you said, if we do become, 30% of the growth in the world GDP, or 3x of the current cumulative market cap, which is 4 or 5 trillion, whatever it is, right? There'll be a lot of opportunities to serve a lot of customers, right? We don't even, like, I was looking at JP Morgan's, market cap, or Goldman Sachs. That might be equal to the, half the stock market in India, right? Of course, Nvidia and Google are almost that already. So therefore, there should be a lot of opportunities. So where do you think are some of the opportunities? Where would the incumbents like yourself and some of the other, peers of yours do well? Where could there be ways to do interesting, novel things as founders?
Look, overall, I believe that startups will always have an opportunity, however big the incumbent may be. It's like Google was there and then Facebook comes along, and then Facebook,
Absolutely.
there's somebody else. When MySpace, I mean, you remember
I
MySpace?
remember
I don't know
MySpace.
when was the last time anybody talked about. When MySpace was there, who thought a Facebook would come along
You
and do
remember
something else?
Orkut? You
Orkut,
probably.
right? Well, you know Orkut better
I
than
was
I
there.
do.
I was there when Facebook took it over,
There you go.
or
Like,
rather
Orkut
killed
was
it.
so big in India and
It was
Brazil.
very big in
And
India
so
and
I
Brazil.
think
Yeah.
the startups and people who are going after innovation, I think will always have a chance, first of all. So I don't think we should worry about incumbents at all. And I'll talk about wealth space, and maybe even broadly
Of
talk
course.
about opportunities that I see. See, in wealth space, the the problem statement is very, very simple. The same as what I talked about. It's like, I've got $1,000. What do I do with it? Now I've got 10,000. What do I do with it? Now it seems very simple, but it's very hard to solve a simple problem in a simple way. I think probably Jack Dorsey said it's very, very complicated to create a simple product.
Absolutely.
Right. So how do you create a simple product that catches people's imagination, that people can trust, that is compliant, and works for people over long term as the world evolves, AI will come, this and that. So the problem statement is very simple. Now, when you go asking consumers, have you heard the faster horses story?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
then
No,
maybe
no, that's
should I
all right.
describe it?
I think
So it's
yeah.
it is one of my
Henry
most
Ford.
favorites.
Henry Ford.
Henry Ford, right?
Yeah, please go ahead, tell
so
it.
the
Yeah.
fable, it's probably a fable.
It is.
It's my favorite product story. So you go doing research. So Henry Ford went doing research. It's a fable. Let's say he did research. People said, what do they want? They want faster horses that are easy to maintain, that don't smell, that don't fall sick. But he could have actually listened to the customers and started breeding horses, which was a fair game. He would have made money. But he changed the thing, and he said, look, actually their problem is what? So when people say, look, I want to make a lot of money, I want to double my money, I want to go 5x, that's not what they're saying. They're saying, look, what is the best I can do with it? Because if you told them, hey, yes, you can do 5x, but then you might lose the money. And they're like, no, I won't lose the money. And so what is it? In fact, for us to be able to educate them and say, what is a reasonable expectation? What should you expect out of it? What should you do? If you need a loan tomorrow, what should happen? And so understanding them in a deeper way, and then solving for it and saying, look, I've got this money and tomorrow I may have a need for a home, this, that. How do you bring it all together? Now, today, somebody like you will probably go to a wealth manager and say, hey, just take this problem away from me. Very few people can trust and even do that. If you can bring this together, I know I'm describing in a very fuzzy way, but this problem is very simple. Just make this problem of money go away for me. Like I wanted to become an enabler. Don't want to manage it. Like, can you do my taxes? Can you do other things? If somebody solve this problem, that'll work. Now the devil is in the details and how you do it. There are other problems outside. Should I talk about other problems outside?
Yeah, it'll be very helpful. Yeah, please.
I think the other end of the spectrum in some ways is, I think a lot of people think about India and say, look, India doesn't have a real foundational model. Should we like do some AI research and deep tech? I think all of that is probably important from a security perspective and all that. But when you're looking at a startup, yes, some of them will go after deep tech. But my thought is that even a Google and other people are saying, look, it's about product market fit. When internet happened, Cisco was not the company that made most money or got most benefit out of it. It's the Google, Facebook, other people who worked on top of it. I think with AI, the same thing will happen. It's not the infra companies that'll get commoditized very, very quickly because there's a lot of money, people will go after it. When you create products on top of it and say, look, what is the right product to create? And it's not as deep tech. It is really about understanding the consumer deeply. This is going back to the Henry Ford story and saying, look, am I solving a real problem? I also like the Delta 4 theory from Kunal.
Yes.
You probably heard that, right? It's like,
Yes.
on a scale of 10, if the current solution is 4, then the solution that will really work has to be 8. So find that delta and say, look, what is solving the problem in a unique way? And don't just say, look, I have to just do AI, because it's starting to become like blockchain at times. Like, whatever I have to do through blockchain. So that's an important one. Specifically, other areas where I think AI will, I think healthcare is an important one. Nobody has solved it in a good way. I think you had invested in a company in that area.
Yeah.
But you can make the best doctor in the world. Tutors, I think how you do that, how you create that,
Of course.
that is a big problem. But
I want to come back, AK, to wealth, and whether it's investing, trading, whatever. I'm just thinking aloud here, like what Jio and Aadhaar and the UPI rails did to democratizing of payments, right? And Jio shifting money.
Yeah.
What happens to everybody being able to manage wealth more effectively? One is like, okay, I have 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees,
Right.
I get my annual performance bonus or whatever it is, and therefore I want to invest it, right? Or I got some kind of lump sum. What are the kind of things that you think people can enable through technology to help, right? One is just the basic stuff, like help me invest 50,000 rupees. Fair enough, right? But nobody's thinking about even a will or insurance or any of those things, right? So I'm just sort of curious, like what could lead to the democratization of wealth, or dare I say like a personal CFO, right? Or a personal wealth manager for everyone. Because not everyone's going to get a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs or a Kotak's kind of wealth manager, right?
Actually, I want to go a step beyond. So when you were saying this, right, the thing I was thinking is family office.
Hmm.
Like if you want
Of
to,
course,
like,
absolutely.
so when you think about it, if you wanted something, and we are talking about agentic AI these times, right? The the ultimate, probably not the ultimate, but the goal should be that could you create a family office for me? No, I can't afford a family office. Yes, I can probably afford a wealth manager, but I can't afford a family office. But if I could, I would, right? Because then suddenly there is a bunch of these things that, money is an enabler. You don't want to worry about it. And how do you take it away so that you don't have to contact a CA to do your taxes? You don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to go across. So if somebody could stitch it together, and it's very possible, we'll have to attack one at a time. But you stitch it all together and say somebody will do my will trust, keep it updated, will do insurance, will make sure the payments happen on time, has access to all of this. Now, how do you do it in a fail-safe, trustworthy, and efficient and effective way? Is the game. And to do all of this means that you'll have to like convince regulators saying, hey, I'm making these automated payments through an agent. It's risky. Like there was a agent in China that just ran up the credit card bill
Yeah.
up there. So it's not straightforward to do it. And what happens is with technology is that the first 95% goes very quickly. In 2010, I was seeing driverless cars in the US. It took another 15 years for a taxi to show up, and it's still not very widely
Widespread,
used.
yeah.
So this initial part will be very clear, and whoever can get into the detail and solve this use case by use case, keeping that vision in mind, I think that is and
Fair
you can
enough.
create an agent. I don't think there's a problem with
Fair
that.
enough. Fair enough. So since we've talked and alluded to and skirted all around AI, what is your thought, not just about startup ideas, but what are the pragmatic way in which you guys are using AI or enabling AI for your customers or for your own team?
Yeah, yeah,
Can you talk about some sort of use cases of where you guys have adopted AI en masse at Angel One?
sure. So there are a few layers that we think about of at Angel One. Number one is how AI goes into a product itself, what the consumers are facing as a product. So we have a bunch of things there in terms of basics like personalization and all of that is there. But very recently we launched a product called Ask Angel,
Okay.
which is like a bot that cuts across. So depending on where you enter this bot from, it'll give you a different context. For example, you were in a stocks detail page and you enter it, and I'll show you a demo afterwards. You enter it. Let's say you were at some stock and you enter. Now it will give you pills. It'll give you suggestions and say, hey, do you want fundamentals? Do you want technical? Now you go into fundamentals. It'll show you that. And again, it'll give you pills based on the context. And so you can keep diving deep. Now you say, I don't know about this stock. Tell me what's going on in the market. It'll suddenly change its stack and say, okay, here are the top gainers, losers, what's happening. It'll give you news as well. So the idea is that it can get you very contextual information. It's very safe, so it won't sort of go off the guardrails. Now, same thing if you entered through the customer support page. Suddenly it will give you different pills saying, what's my portfolio, where is my order, what's my brokerage charges, stuff like that. So this is something that we've just started, just a few days back. This is all hot off the press. But the idea is that we want to educate people, we want to have this at their hands and be able to very quickly do it versus going all over the place in a very generic chatbot. So that's in other places also we're using AI models, but that's you get the idea in our product
And
itself.
yeah, absolutely.
Second is in our operations that are supporting the product. So for example, the customer support chatbot that I talked about, our email responses to customers that we can do, because this business is very, very complicated, very interesting cases that happen. So how do you make sure that each of these operations behind it is also AI enabled? The third is in the building the product itself.
Of course.
So a ton of our code is generated using AI now. Folks are using different models, whichever model they want to use. We are enabling more and more of those tools to them. That's just on code generation, but even in our marketing department, UX, PRDs, all of this we are putting things there. But of course, we are uh, you know, we have to have that trust, and we are a regulated business. So we look through each of these. So there is a human in the loop there, but you get the idea, in building the product itself. Number four is in educating people itself, right? On how do we use it for L&D and learning and all of that.
For
Learning AI
yourself, for your
for
employees,
our
or for
employees,
customers as well.
for our employees,
For your
for
employees.
customers anyway, the bot is there. That is the product facing. For our employees as well, how do we use it on learning itself? And so these are sort of the spectrum of things that we are doing on AI.
Absolutely. No, I think you alluded to it earlier. In fact, I remember having a chat about this with one of your competitors, right? Nitin Kamath of Zero Tha. Like, you guys should do a lot more for financial literacy, right? People just don't understand what financial literacy is. And I think there's a lot more
You
that,
should try out Ask Angel. Actually, it's quite.
yeah,
You ask it MTF, it will tell
absolutely.
you what it is.
Absolutely. No, I most certainly will try it out. Um, So AK, as we come towards the end of the podcast, maybe just some thoughts on how you have gone about building teams, how you go about hiring people, what lessons you have learned from some inspiring leaders. I know we had an interesting chat about Sundar Pichai last week, but just a few things around building teams, because you've been in very large setups, right? At Google, Myntra and Flipkart was also pretty large by the time you got there and so forth. So just a little bit on team building and how would you recommend for founders who are early stage with modest amounts of capital, at least to begin with, right? To build a team.
So when you mentioned Sundar, I think I've learned a lot just observing him. Whenever you get an opportunity to meet him, it's always a an amazing sort of privilege and a pleasure. So I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from Caesar Sen Gupta,
Of
who's
course.
like at Google for a long time. So
Can you
bunch of
give some
folks.
examples or anecdotes that may be useful
So
for
both
founders to
actually,
think about?
in fact, both Caesar and Sundar, I thought that they have touched people, in ways where you think, look, why would they care about me in this instance? Now, I don't want to go into specific
I
examples.
understand. I
Maybe I'll
understand.
give you a specific example, actually. With Caesar, for example, I was, he called me to Singapore as I was joining. This was 2018 May, I still remember. And so he said, hey, we'll do a small dinner. You're here. And I had not joined Google then. Now we had the dinner. Now he's a very big guy at
Yeah,
Google,
of course.
and so we were done with this dinner. He says, "AK, why don't I leave you to your hotel? It's on my way." And I'm like, "I'm in Sentosa W. It's on nobody's way. It's at the end of the thing." He says, "No, no, let me leave you there." And the fact that he took that sort of effort, he could have gone back to his family.
And
It
probably
was late in the
drove his
evening.
car himself.
He drove his car himself for a long way out. I know where he lives now. And as we were getting out of the car, I remember taking my bag out of the trunk, and he said, "AK, we are not trying to build something basic. We are trying to build as big as Alibaba." And Alibaba was big at that time.
Of
Even now
course.
it's very big. And I think in transactions we kind of came close to it. So inspiring and actually caring. And I've had that with, I think, Sundar as well, is that there are times when they touch you and they're like, why would you, Sundar, why would he care about you? But I think touching people in these instances, people remember. People remember. Even other people, like I remember once going to meet Gopal Vittal at Airtel. And he came out of his room, he waited at the elevator till the elevator closed, he was there.
Yeah.
And I think this makes a difference. It probably, it took effort for him, but that makes a difference how you touch people. So some of these things are, very hard. When you see them in that, you just are touched and you always remember, I remember this instance. But other things that I think about, at least, hiring people, one of the sort of litmus tests that I use, and I'll come back to sort of the three things I look for. Actually, let me start with three things. The three things I look for in people, if I can judge them, hard to judge. Number one is ability to learn. Number two is ability to unlearn because they're related. And number three is ownership. If you have these three building blocks, I don't care what you know, you don't know. If you're good at these and you're really good, you're there. And the litmus test I use, especially when I hire people who report to me directly, I close my eyes and I say, in a different world, can I imagine reporting to this person? Because if you have that kind of respect, then you can trust this person, you can leave them alone. And so that's, I think, very, as people think about hiring people, think about that.
No, that's phenomenal on both, and completely agree. Unlearn is a very interesting one that we should add. So even when we are thinking of backing founders, one of the core things we look for in founders is the learning quotient. And we have different ways to kind of evaluate it and observe it. And we, of course, have multiple meetings and so forth. I think the unlearning is an interesting one. Ownership, we just had an offsite for our own team, and like the theme of the offsite was ownership, right? So I think it's a very, very critical.
Ownership, I wanted to because a lot of
Yeah.
time people misunderstand it.
Please.
And it's different from being territorial.
Yes.
So the way I describe ownership is a complete ownership where you feel one with the thing.
One with the angel.
One with the thing that you're working with, whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
whatever project you have. So for example, and I give this example, but it's not exactly analogous. I don't have a good example, but let's say my son is sick, right? He has fever. First day, I might say, hey, let me give some paracetamol and see what happens. Next day, again, maybe I'll try. Third day that happens, I'm like, I need to go to a doctor. And so when you're a real owner, you're not trying to say, I will solve the problem. You're not being territorial, I'll solve the problem.
Absolutely.
Owner is, I will find the best expert in the world because this problem needs to get solved. I will get people into my business. I will bring people in. I will do whatever it takes. In the end, what I own of the company, all of that is very different. But the first goal is this company has to be successful. It attached to my brand. And I feel ownership of it in that way. So that's, I think, and it's hard to find at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to nurture it too, right? Because you also have to give them the environment to demonstrate ownership. But I completely agree with you that and it's often unfortunately missing
It is.
in a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So no, so that's very fascinating. And then I think both on the hiring, I think it is either Sheryl Sandberg or Zuckerberg who also has that same test, said, would I in an alternate universe imagine reporting to this person or coming on a Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. because they called for, I just want to meet you for half an hour, right? And you're like, yeah, absolutely, I'm getting in the car or in a cab and I'm coming over. Great, very interesting, AK. So as we wrap up, maybe some tips and tricks or things you've learned, maybe your personal favorite AI tools, maybe books you like, maybe whatever. Like, what do you do to keep current? I know you have a crazy big company to run, but nonetheless, any kind of
I think one is I feel like everybody has time in their lives. Everybody feels busy, but I personally feel everybody has time in their lives. It's really about nervous energy and what you have. My books are mostly non-fiction. And some of the books recently that I've been actually, one that is my favorite, people have heard it over and over again, but I'll tell you on the podcast also. My most favorite book is Why We Sleep. I used to wake up crazy early at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and I used to feel good about it.
Right?
Matthew Walker.
Matthew Walker.
Highly recommend. Best book I ever read. Changed my life because I started sleeping later, and it's actually a good thing. Sleep has so much impact on you.
Absolutely.
Second one also, again, kind of health oriented, is a book called Outlive.
Peter Attia.
Yeah, Peter Attia. I think very important. Like, it talks about exercise, it talks about protein, it talks about the 4 horsemen. So I think that's a very interesting book that I remember. Beyond that, I think beyond health, the one that I kind of just comes to my mind because I didn't think about like what books I tell you is Homo Deus. Very interesting book about where we are going and where like Homo sapiens is like what our species is called, but Homo Deus is like deity and God, like what we are trying to become. So very relevant in the current time. So those are 3 that comes to my mind.
Great. And what do you do to keep on top of either developments in AI or regulatory or whatever? Like, what's your kind of protocol to keep on top of the world beyond sort of more reflective reading like health and other stuff?
One is that I learn a lot from people around me. Like, for example, Rohit Chatter, who's our like chief of data and AI, like he'll bring in new things. Other folks in the team who would bring in, say, hey, have you done this and that? So most times actually sparring with them, learning from them, that you learn a lot. I listen to a podcast called AI Daily News, AI Daily Brief. You listen to that as well?
I listen to that.
think it's fantastic.
I love it. That's the best.
It's like
20 minutes.
Half an hour podcast. He actually doesn't miss it. Even if he's traveling, he'll sort of, he'll post something. So that is very useful. And I generally try to keep updated with just the news and, what's happening in the world around AI. Just being curious. I actually feel the biggest quality, even though I didn't say, learn, unlearn, and ownership, I didn't put curiosity in there, but I think learning and curiosity are together.
Yeah, somewhat synonymous.
So if you're really curious, so I think I stay curious on what is happening, how it works, why it works, and that I think the curiosity ends up being automatically you end up like finding things to learn. But I'm actually not doing a great job. So your founders, I tell you this, I'll not name him. Maybe we should ask him and then name him. He's an Indian founder. He's probably worth $1 billion. He's, very interesting company. So I was having dinner with him, and I said, how do you stay current? He said, AK, every week's all day Saturday, that's all I spend on. I said, wow, I'm not doing enough. Like, this person is so successful, already done well. And so I think just it's such a big inflection point that spending enough time on it is still not enough.
Fantastic, AK. Well, that's a wrap. So I think stay curious, stay optimistic. India is just beginning, and we will be Viksit Bharat by 2047. So thanks for being on the show.
Hopefully sooner. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Pleasure. We got it to 40 minutes, our usual.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners Podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.